let's remind ourselves of what's been happening over the course of the last few days and hours, over the last week or so, because Elon Musk started agitating, shall we say, about the grooming gang story, and has done incredibly well to raise awareness, not only for the people who didn't know what was going on in the first place, but also to help those who have been complaining and who have been absolutely focused on this story for weeks and months and years. Here's what he had to say on Saturday at a reform meeting in Chelmsford.
He's got Elon, who is a proper hero, who believes in free speech. And free speech doesn't mean you agree with every single word that everyone says, but it means you have a platform and the right to excuse it.
And of course, he was then asked on Laura Kuenssberg's show this was on Sunday morning, about some of the things that Elon Musk has been saying about Keir Starmer and about Jess Phillips.
And is his friend, Elon Musk, now your friend, and is he going to give you millions of pounds?
Well, that's a real question, isn't it? Now, I mean, you know, forget about the $100 million being talked about in the newspapers.
Are you going to give you money?
That is for the birds.
Is he going to give you money?
He may well do. He may well do. But it's got to be legal. He's got to be comfortable with it. He may well give us money. Whether he does or not, I'll tell you what he gives us. With huge numbers of young people, he makes us look cool.
Is the reason you hope he's going to give you money, is that why you don't want to criticise him?
I think I've made it perfectly clear that I don't agree with everything he stands for, but I do believe in free speech. I think he's a hero, and I said that well before any potential money was offered.
And we'll be speaking to Elon Musk's father a little bit later on in this show. We will also be speaking to Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform. But let's see what Nigel Farage had to say when he was asked again by Laura Kuenssberg about the money.
But would you tell Elon Musk that he is wrong? So I know you've distanced yourself from his comments about Tommy Robinson.
Do you know what? Do you know what? Real friends, when they meet face to face, have conversations, and they agree to agree, and sometimes they agree to disagree. And that is what open society and free speech is all about.
And shortly thereafter, it was issued by Elon Musk, this tweet: the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. Now, that happened yesterday afternoon. An awful lot of people were quite taken aback by it. Lots of people said, oh, this is the beginning of the end of reform. Some people in the Labour Party thought, oh, this is going to be great news for them, because it means that we cannot be in any way sidestepped or pushed out of the way by reform. But Nigel Farage once again put out his tweet, and this was yesterday afternoon around about 3 o'clock. Well, this is a surprise, he said. Elon is a remarkable individual, but on this I am afraid I disagree. My view remains that Tommy Robinson is not right for reform, and I never sell out my principles. And so that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we currently sit. An awful lot of you, I think, will agree that Nigel Farage is the man to lead the Reform Party to victory, because others who say that it could be Rupert Lowe, it could be Richard Tice, it could be any number of other people. Nigel Farage is the Reform Party. He's the reason that they got elected. He's the reason they got 5 MPs into Parliament. If you remember, he wasn't going to run as an MP at the beginning of Reform's campaign, and as soon as he announced that he did it on this very show. And as soon as he did, the Reform Party was galvanised. 4.5 million people voted for them, and the rest is history, ladies and gentlemen. But let's talk to Sunil Sharma and find out what he makes of it all. Sunil, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Fascinating times we live in. I mean, you never quite know what's around the corner. What do you make of this spat between Elon Musk and Nigel Farage?
Well, I think Elon deserves so much credit for what he's done with the grooming gang situation. I think the amount of attention he's drawn to it over X, Twitter, has been incredible. Yeah. It's something that's barely been covered across any other media outlets aside from you guys here and maybe GB News. Aside from that, I think it's been barely covered. So it's amazing what he's done in terms of raising attention on that. And there's something that should have been done a long, long time ago. Yeah. With the Musk and Farage situation, I think it's a tough one. Elon Musk is known for doing this sort of thing in terms of going on Twitter or going on X and, basically saying what he thinks and saying it unfiltered. He said it about his own car in terms of Tesla before, when the stock prices drastically dropped. He said negative things about his own company, his own people, multiple times. He did it once on a Joe Rogan podcast. So it's quite Elon Musk-like behavior in terms of just speaking his thoughts. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think Reform obviously needs to just stay strong as a political party and almost be like, thank you, you're doing amazing work, but we are going to govern how we decide to govern. And I think I was listening in one of the viewers who messaged in when it was, when it becomes January the 20th, I think there'd be a very much different Elon Musk when you've got the Donald Trump as president. I think that will change the dynamic.
Yeah.
For now, I think is that kind of, he's almost off the chains. You can say what he wants, do what he wants, which has been largely, I would still argue, been for the greater good of Britain so far, what Elon's done. And yeah, hopefully long may that continue.
I think so. But it also gives Nigel Farage an opportunity here, I think, doesn't it? To be, and I read this piece this morning by Tim Stanley in The Telegraph, to be a sort of a slightly bigger statesman figure rather than just being a kind of a loose cannon on X or on Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Because some of the things that Elon Musk was beginning to say about Keir Starmer and about Jess Phillips might have been considered to be slightly over the top. I know there are a lot of people that think Starmer's, certainly responsible for some of the stuff that didn't happen, and Jess Phillips should be doing a better job and all of that. But to sort of suddenly call for the locking up of these people, you might say it might have been more difficult for Farage to stand aside that, if you like, and actually agree with it. What he did very carefully and cleverly was to say, look, I don't have to agree with absolutely everything he says, and he kind of intimated that he might not agree with some of the language either. But it's pretty typical, isn't it, of British media to criticise Elon Musk for his language rather than criticise the people who were actually doing the raping.
Well, the British media made a bigger deal out of Elon Musk's tweet towards Nigel Farage than the fact that 250,000 girls have been groomed and raped over the last 10, 15 years. They made a much bigger deal about Elon Musk, a billionaire, making comments to Nigel Farage than what's happening in the UK, which really sums up the importance of the pair of them in terms of Farage and Musk. The thing I would say with regards to Farage and Reform is the Tommy Robinson situation, almost the elephant in the room. I do think the way they addressed his supporters as almost like them lot or this lot, I think that was maybe a bit of a, if you like, an error in judgment. I think it's wrong to demonize people who, whether you like Tommy Robinson or you don't, I just think it was wrong to demonize his group of supporters and people who follow him. I think they could have handled that a lot better. It's fine to say, he's not going to be part of our administration, part of our team, but I think the way they handled that, I think, was particularly poor and wasn't necessarily the right way of handling it. I think that was probably what is the reason I think Elon Musk has spiraled like this and had his anger towards Farage. I think they could have handled that a lot better.
And do you think that is possibly the fact that they're just a very young political organisation, and perhaps it's a very small political organisation which is run in a way unlike any other, because it is, I mean, people have described Reform as a bit of a cult of personality. It's about Nigel Farage, he's the leader of the party, it's all about him. I mean, is that what you think is the problem?
No, I think, Reform is essentially a start-up political party, right? They're like a start-up business, and when you have a start-up business, it's largely around the founder, the main person. It's all centered on that person's vision, and as time goes on, you sort of make it more democratic. You bring more people in. You sort out the voting system, which I know there was problems last election. They're a very young new party, and they're going to have teething problems. They're going to have mistakes within each other, and it's a new organization essentially that are now trying to take on two massive parties that have been around for close to 100, one over 100 years. You have one close to 100. It's going to take time for them to pick up speed and they are going to make some of these teething problems next. So I think it's unfair the way media is going after any sort of problem that happens with Reform, especially considering these sort of mistakes are still happening within Labour and Conservative parties, and especially since some of the most serious issues have been largely ignored, especially with what we've seen with the grooming gang scandal. The amount that has been ignored just demonstrates to you why people are so angry, and even more important reason why we do actually have to almost open up the political platform. Which brings us back to Keir Starmer, because Keir Starmer returns from his holiday today. There's going to be a debate in Westminster Hall over whether there should be another election. We know that that's more kind of, for sort of window dressing than anything else, and we don't expect anything major to come from it. But it's a kind of embarrassment for the Prime Minister. Also, he's now saying, because of Elon Musk, that he's going to get the Labour Party and the government to somehow operate the recommendations of the Jay report from 2 years ago. But until this week, he was never going to do anything about it. crazy. I mean, it seems like he's been on more than just this. This doesn't seem like his first holiday. I find that so surprising that this is his first holiday. I don't know what he's done in the last 6 months. This has been like a really terrible period for United Kingdom. And why has it taken Elon Musk, the person who's in America, to bring such attention to what's gone on in Britain for the last 10 plus years? And it's clear that he wouldn't have done anything had he not drawn attention, which again just shows the importance of Elon, Nigel Farage and these people, because this wouldn't have been addressed if it wasn't for them. It's a real problem for the Labour Party. I think there is a serious I've been saying a lot, even on this show previously, there's lack of ideas, there's lack of principles, there's lack of, all this sort of stuff. But this is just pure incompetence. This is.
I think it's worse than that, though, isn't it? Because it's not just incompetence; it's deliberate obfuscation, it's deliberate avoidance, it's deliberate kind of pushing things to the back of the priority list. Because we keep hearing from Keir Starmer, we've had to make tough decisions, we've had to come in and fix the problems that the nation faces, we've had to take priorities and lead from the front and all of that. And until this moment, not once has grooming gangs been mentioned, not once has a crackdown on these Pakistani men who should be being deported. None of that's happened.
It's crazy, a lot of the stuff, like I say, I know we had the inquiry that the information that's 255, but a lot of this has been going on for so long. Like the stats and data is there. If you look on terms of the influence of Pakistani people and some of the stuff that's gone on, whether it's in Bradford with that sort of cousin marriages, this is all the data's all out there. I've been on this show, GB News, and people have talked about this for a long time. But every time you do mention it, you're called Islamophobic, and it's people like Keir Starmer's cabinet, people like the people he surrounds himself, that don't allow for these conversations to happen. So it's a clear thing that they've decided to deliberately ignore. They put the interests of a very select minority of people at the heart of their government, at the heart of what they've done for their policies, what they believe in for the last 10, 15 years. They're stuck in this sort of, they don't understand what's really going on in this country. And I think this is a real testament to even now, where it feels as if it's the grooming gang scandal is being talked more by the likes of Elon, Reform and other people than our political party, who should be making this decision. He should have released a statement straight away once this came about. He should have been doing the inquiry in the first place. He should have been the one taking control of this, not third parties. But it shows where the priorities of this government are, and it's not, in my opinion, for the interests of the wider country. No. I think it's just for a minority of people who this doesn't affect, like a lot of the stuff that we've talked about previously, whether it's flying to Baku, whether it's the climate change policy, net zero. These issues don't affect, they don't make a difference to his friends, his cabinet, his group of people, but it affects everyone else. It makes the rest of the country poorer, more unsafe. For Keir Starmer, this makes no difference, and I think it's really reflective in what he's doing right now.
Absolutely right. Sunil, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Sunil Sharma there, political commentator, host of the Rational Voices with Sunil podcast.